Hey everyone, thanks for watching. I wanted to do a follow-up video to the comparison video I did comparing the Omega Aqua Terra 8900 series, which is on the left here, with the 8500 series on the right. The watch on the right is the predecessor of the watch on the left. And in my prior video, I compared these two watches, which I think are both really absolutely wonderful overall. Both beautiful watches, both present a compelling combination of quality and brand recognition. I highlighted in my prior video, the strengths of the 8900 in my opinion, which were mostly related to the comfort of wearing, and the strengths of the 8500, which to me mostly boil down to aesthetic considerations. Over the course of alternately wearing these watches for an extended period of time, I made some observations which I wanted to share here about a couple of the things which I like about the 8500 more than the 8900, and I'll probably eventually do a similar video highlighting some of the more minor details in the 8900, which I found to be advantageous over the 8500. But here they go. So first off, crown. The crown shape is different between these two watches. I think I did mention that in my prior video about this, and you'll find there's a lot of other comparison videos describing and contrasting these two watches. The crown shape was a big difference. Here you can see at a different angle. There's even a different finish. The 8900 is more of a bead blast background with a polished Omega logo, whereas the 8500 is more like a brushed finish with the polished logo on top. But the key difference, and where the 8500 exceeds the 8900 in my opinion, is the usability. The 8500's crown is more similar. I would say it's a more traditionally shaped crown. It's a little bit more squared off at the corners. There's more actual crown coming out from the case. Very easy to grab. It's a screw down crown, same for both of these watches. But as you can see here, the 8900, some people call this like an onion shape. It's more rounded. It's very rounded actually. And while this might be good in terms of being less irritating if you were to dig into the skin on top of your wrist when you wear this watch on the left hand, it makes for a much harder to grip and turn crown. I mean, obviously you can get it, but you have to be more careful when grabbing the crown. It's not that easy to grab with a loose grip because there's less crown sticking out, and as I said, it's more rounded. I don't think that's very functional. I don't think the slight increase in comfort from rounding this off compensates for the fact that the crown here on the 8500 is more useful. So another interesting difference I wanted to note is how the end links work. The end links are different on these two watches. I got a lot of comments and questions about that actually from the first video, but as you can see here, this is what the 8500, this is what they call a male end link. So you can see the center portion comes out beyond the sides of the end link. This is probably what you'd see more commonly most watches. What this does is it effectively increases the lug to lug distance on the watch, and thus makes the watch wear a little larger than the lug to lug dimension would suggest. You can see here, because of this end link, the bracelet actually begins a little further out from the case of the watch. Sorry if that wasn't super in focus. 8900 though has what they call female end links, where the middle portion of the end link is recessed as compared to the sides. So you can see that here. And what this does is actually brings the bracelet closer to the case of the watch, reducing the effective lug-to-lug distance on the wrist, and as a result, the watch helps the watch wear smaller. So advantageous if the watch wearing too large is a concern for you. Now, despite that advantage in wearability, perhaps, I just don't like how the female end links look. Um, One thing I notice is if the watch is on a small wrist and sitting like so, the points of the lugs actually stick out a little bit beyond the uh, the end link. And to me, not only does that look odd, almost like it's not a correct fit, you can see it here, but also these points are really sharp. Um, there's an ongoing issue with some excessively sharp edges in modern Omegas. I know a lot of people have mentioned that issue in forums, and I've seen it on videos, and that's a typical example here. These edges can be really sharp. This watch is not brand new, so it's maybe slightly less sharp than it was, but still very sharp. And to me, it just doesn't look right, that point sticking out beyond the end link. It doesn't look like something you'd see on a really high-end piece. The 8500 does not have that issue, as I said, because the end links are a completely different shape. They make the bracelet actually sort of begin beyond the end of the lug, so these corners never stick out. As you can see, no matter where I put the bracelet, this point, you can never feel this point. Another thing that I like about this end link is that its profile is raised in the center as compared to the sides. I think that's a really nice look for transitioning from the lines of the case to the bracelet. I know that's a pretty subtle detail, but when you wear a watch a long time and study it up close, you pay attention to things like that. I think that looks really nice. And that sort of leads me to the next thing, which I like about the 8500 as opposed to 8900, and that's the bracelet itself. The bracelet on the 8900, you can see here, is substantially thinner than on the 8500. The links themselves are thinner, and their profile is different. So first off, while the thinner links make the watch a little lighter, I don't feel that the original Aqua Terra needed to be lightened in weight. I think I appreciate the weight of these links, actually, the feeling of substantialness they give the bracelet. You can even see it here, even without actually holding this in hand. These links, while beautiful, don't convey that sense of substantialness to me. They just seem, even though this is really finely made, it just doesn't seem as premium of a bracelet. And I primarily attribute that to the lighter weight. Another thing about the bracelet, which I like in the 8500, is that each of the links has more of a rounded profile. I did mention this in my prior video, but I wanted to expand on it here a little bit. Here, the link profile, especially at the top on the 8900, is much more flat and straight, and each link almost has a right angle where it ends here. Let me see if I can bring that a little closer here. So these are really sharp when the bracelet is when a link is flexed, and I don't like how this feels. It's very sharp, and what you see here is sort of like almost very little light getting through the bracelet because these tolerances, these joints are so narrow. The 8500, it's more rounded. You can immediately see that it's more rounded off. It's definitely not something like a right angle, and there's a little more space between the links. This is not bracelet stretch. This is just the way the bracelet is, and I don't know this to be a fact for certain, but I feel this allows better breathability. There's some gaps between the links. I think that helps in comfort, but most of all, I just like how it looks, especially in combination with the fact that the bracelet itself is a thicker material. So those are three. Let me add the last thing I wanted to mention, and that's regarding the clasp. So a lot of people have commented how the clasp has changed. The 8500 clasp buttons were on this part of the clasp itself, this butterfly clasp, whereas the 8900 did this clever thing where this part that sits under your wrist is completely smooth because the button hardware is here as part of this last link, which connects, this part of the clasp which connects to the links. And this was a great idea. by Omega, because this was not very comfortable here, this bump. And this is, it's very nice to have a smooth surface sitting against the wrist. But they did make one mistake, in my opinion, and that is when this is closed, while this is completely flat, it's also extremely straight. So you have a very straight, immovable portion of bracelet here. And I just feel this, now perhaps on a larger wrist this is less noticeable, but on a smaller wrist such as mine, I would have preferred this to show a slight bit more of curvature. I think that would have felt better against the wrist, and I've really never seen a bracelet with such a pronounced, flat area when the clasp is closed. See, look at that. It's almost like a bar. I think this should have a little bit more of a gentle, even curvature. And that's something that the 8500, despite this bump, does have. And I'll close the clasp here and show you. See, even though this bump is here, there is a more smooth curvature to that clasp, and that's something I've come to appreciate more as I've worn this watch. And yeah, those were just a couple observations that really were not at the forefront when I first did my comparison of these two watches. It takes time to really get to know a watch with all the details, and those are some things that over the course of a year I've come to appreciate more about the older 8500. There are things about the 8900 which I've come to appreciate more as well. Hopefully be able to cover that in a subsequent video, but I'm curious to hear what others think. I know there's a lot of opinions on this matter over which of these two is the better watch, but let me know. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and please be sure to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.